Welcome to GOS Media. I'm Josiah Kim. There was a ruthless king who would not tolerate insolence, mistakes, or folly. 10 years ago, he appointed a man named James to be his minister of finances. James was loyal and faithful for the entire decade that he served the king. At their weekly gathering of ministers, James was to give a report on finances. When it was his turn to report, high anxiety ran through his entire essence of being. For you see, funds were dwindling at an alarming rate due to the king's extravagant expenditures on frivolous items. Just as he expected, the king grew angry and asked James what he was going to do to increase the amount of funds. James explained that the only way to accumulate more money is to increase the inflow or decrease the outflow. If you want to accumulate money quicker, then you must do both. As the finance minister, he told the king he was going to increase the inflow by raising taxes throughout the kingdom. To decrease the outflow, he recommended that the king be given a monthly allowance and thus curb the king's expenditure. Though he only meant good for the king and the kingdom, the king did not see it that way. He was furious at the minister's audacity to tell the king what he could purchase or not. He went on to say that he no longer trusted James to oversee the finances, and to prevent him from fomenting a coup, the king ordered that James be thrown to the wild dogs. "Your Majesty, I have faithfully served you 10 years and you do this?" James exclaimed. "Please give me 10 days before you throw me in with those wild dogs." The king agreed and allowed the man 10 days to get his affairs in order. James immediately found the keeper of the dogs and told him that the king wanted him to go find more wild dogs. He handed the keeper 5 pieces of gold for travel expenses. After the keeper left the castle grounds, James took on the duties of looking after the dogs. Now, the keeper of the dogs usually just threw carcasses of meat into the middle of the pen and let the dogs fight over it. The keeper also never cleaned the pen or washed the dogs. In other words, the dogs were treated miserably. James, on the other hand, ensured that each dog had plenty to eat, gave them a good bath, untangling their hair and removing fleas and ticks, and cleaned the kennel, changing their beds of hay every day. He even got so he named the dogs and taught them a few basic commands. When a death sentence is hanging over your head, 10 days go by pretty quick, and for James, it seemed ultra quick. The king and his other ministers gathered around, and being a man of his word, James showed up and was prepared to be thrown into the pack of dogs. The king and his ministers were shocked, surprised, and amazed. The dogs didn't jump the man and tear them apart. Instead, they lovingly wagged their tails and licked his ankles. A few even lay at his feet. The king was totally confused and asked, "What has happened to my dogs? And where's the keeper?" James told the king that he lied to the keeper and sent him away. He then dropped to his knees and said, "O king, I served these dogs but for 10 days. I ensured they had food. I cleaned up their mess, and I treated them with kindness. Today, they honored my faithful service and treated me with kindness." James noticed that a few ministers had tears welling in their eyes, and he could see the wheels in the king's head turning. So he piled it on. "Your Majesty, I have served you 10 years faithfully, maintaining your lifestyle, following your request without deviation, faithfully without grumbling. I did these things for 10 years, and in an instant, one single instant that I meant no harm or insult, you forgot about my decade-long loyalty and service, condemning me to death." The king knew James was the shrewdest minister of all and was indeed honest. He looked around and saw that once ravenous dogs were tamed from simple kindness, he saw his minister, even his minister of war, fighting back tears from simple kindness. Yes, for certain, he realized he made a mistake. He turned and ordered his minister of war to immediately lop off James's head. That night, as he lay in bed, the king could not get the dogs out of his head. Now that they were tame, he wanted to have one or two around his throne. Oh sure, the dogs weren't as aggressive as before, but they looked mean, and only his ministers knew the full story. and they knew better to say anything. So he got up and made his way to the kennel. Entering inside, he began calling the dogs, but they did not know him and did not come out. The king even tried to coax them with scraps of meat he brought with him, but to no avail. The longer he tried to get the dogs out, the more he blamed James for turning the king himself, his dogs against him. Reaching a boiling point, he grabbed a stick and began ruthlessly and cruelly beating the dogs. One thing about dogs, they don't know the difference between a pauper or a king, especially when they're being beaten with a stick. The dogs reverted to their old ways and tore the king limb from limb in the most horrible death imaginable. What shall we make up today's story? Well, if you are the head of a company, manage people, and especially if you're the head of the household or a parent, then today's grain of sugar encapsulates the danger of being a ruthless king. You can build a throne with bayonets, but you can't sit on it for long. Okay, Colony, help us out. Let us know in the comments a time or two you had a ruthless manager or encountered a cold-hearted business owner. They too had a throne made of bayonets that eventually cut them up. Parents and heads of household, give us some tips on how to avoid building a bayonet throne so we all can become better leaders to our families. You will indeed be helping the next generation. And if this is your first time here, please know that Grains of Sugar is a viewer-supported project. And if you would like to see more, then please like, subscribe, and share our videos with others. You can also become a Colony member by joining Patreon, as well as grabbing some merch from our website. All the links are pinned below. Once again, we truly value your support and thanks for tuning in to Grains of Sugar. I've been your host, Josiah Kim.